Ready for it.
Thrilled for it.
Presenting Franks with Turbo Booster Jet Engine.
Nexa.
And so this day arrives, 70 days since the start of IPL 2025, match 70, the final league stage game between RCB and LSG, and all eyes on the Royal Challengers. Can they claim a top 2 spot, much like the Punjab Kings, and give us at least a 50% chance of a new champion in the final of IPL 2025? Will Lucknow Super Giants spoil their party? This is a team that suddenly have also found a way to win. They downed the Gujarat Titans, and they'll be hoping to send RCB off with similar wounds into the playoffs. Build up to match 70. Nexa presents ESPN Cricket for Timeout. Toss has just taken place at the Ekana Stadium. A toss once again attended by Jitesh Sharma. So there's so much to talk about. As Tom Moody and Abhinav Mukund reunite on the couch to sign us off in the league stage. Abhi, welcome.
We've all aged, haven't we? After quite a while.
No, don't say that. Tom looks exactly like he did when he won the World Cup in 99.
That's true. There's a shining haircut as well today.
Very shorter after a haircut.
No, not shorter, just 10 years younger.
Yeah.
Maybe 15.
Good man, Thomas. Good man. Dustin is here, and he was asking me just before we entered whether I'll be on the shows today. And when I said yes, he wasn't very pleased.
Why is that, Justin?
Because I like watching you on the Star Sports shows.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. Given that we are always here when our friends at Star operate their shows, you've never watched them.
I watch the replays when I go back home when you're
That is the kind of nerd you are, Dustin. You can't get enough of the game, right? All eyes on RCB. No Rajat Patidar once again as Jitesh attends. He might come off the bench. We'll find out in a second. But do we believe they have exactly what Punjab Kings had last evening to step up from a defeat and outplay an opposition on the way to the playoffs, Abhi?
I think so, yes. They're a very good side. Even with a few injuries, they'll surely be bolstered by the return of Josh Hazelwood. They've got a little bit of an issue with their batting. They lost their number 3s and I think they've lost their number 7 as well. We'll wait for the team sheets to come in. But that's a little bit of an issue, especially in a ground like Ekana Stadium. Need to get there. All their batters have to fire, and the ones that have been consistent have to fire. So leading into the playoffs, that's one area they'd like to consider. But all things, if you put it on paper, RCB are definitely the stronger side.
Just to reaffirm the importance of today's game, to finish in the top 2, in case you need any reminding really, but if they win, they join the Punjab Kings in a top 2 spot, and we have a mouth-watering eliminator between Mumbai Indians and Gujarat Titans. You like the point that Dustin made yesterday, Tom, that Punjab, with the way they play, they'd love even more to be in the top 2. Is it a similar story for RCB, teams that haven't won the IPL, even more important for them to be in Qualifier 1?
I think it obviously helps. It helps everyone for that matter, but they'll be desperate to get into that position just to give themselves that second chance if they don't quite get it right on the night, so to speak. But they need to get it right tonight. And we've seen the trend over the last week or so, and you can say the trend was bucked last night with Punjab beating MI, but, was that an upset, or, who was the underdog in that particular match?
How would you feel about it?
How would I feel about it?
Last evening, now that you asked that question, you actually saw Punjab outplay Mumbai, if it's
absolutely.
fair to say.
Going into that match, I thought Mumbai were favourites.
Right, yeah.
So therefore, to me, the underdog won. So we're still following that trend. Therefore, I fear for RCB.
Yeah. Also remember, RCB haven't won since the restart, right? Because they had the washout, then a loss. So they won't want to have 2 losses going into the playoffs for sure.
It seems like this is now, there have been enough years since the playoff system came in that we can go by statistical history, and Tom loves it when I bring this up.
Can I just fold my hands here to the man on my left? I think this is a record that may be broken this year, but all this while I wanted to do this, and I think it's one of your, I think on your coaching CV it has to be on the top. The only winner in the IPL from the eliminator.
Ah, right, okay. That hasn't been mentioned, is it?
Because, see, look, it's been RCB sort of Achilles' heel for the last 5 years. They've managed to qualify, but only in 3 or 4. It's a realistic possibility for them to change that tonight with matters in their own hands. Last time they were struggling to qualify. The only year they haven't qualified in the last 5 is 23.
Yeah.
And that came on the back of qualifications from 2020. It took them 3 years from the heartbreak of 2016 to even qualify. So Look, it's very difficult to do that. To win 3 games on the bounce in the playoffs is very, very hard.
Yeah.
And I think it's, I still think the team that finishes in the top 2 will win this year's IPL.
Yeah, I wonder how much players are now starting to feel that, and managers also, and coaches would feel that. Just to spell it out, in case you're one of our slightly younger fans, that in the history of the playoff era, out of 14 years, 13 teams that have won the IPL have finished either 1 or 2. The only exception, Sunrisers, after the wise words of Tom Moody back in 2016.
Had to pick them up off the canvas just to lift them. They thought they'd reached Everest, but they'd only reached base camp. And we still had to climb.
Yeah. Do you sense, though, that what Abhi said, to win 3 on the trot in playoff territory remains something which just takes too much out of you? The high after winning an eliminator, the high then to beat the team in qualifier 2, you just cannot match that same intensity 3 in a row anymore. And I wonder how you did it.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And a lot of it's mental than anything else, because if you put yourself in that position, you fall into the trap of looking too far ahead, because you've actually got to win 3 in a row. But really what you've got to do is win the very next game. That's the most important one. It's not relevant the next game after that or the game after that if you're fortunate enough to get through that. So it's keeping the group focused on what's in front of you and not what's ahead of you. And doing that in a way that still galvanises the group and you create that sort of still enthusiasm for the task in hand without it sort of being the enormity of, oh my gosh, we've got to win 3 in a row if we're going to win this title this year. This is near on impossible. So it's just keeping it, pretty grounded to what's in front of you.
You've got to have a cutting edge as well.
Cutting edge. Oh, it took me a second.
Yeah.
Well, we've been, I don't know who it was who said recently that Romario Shepherd is the Ben Cutting of this year's RCB side.
He's got to do it in the final, though.
Yeah, that's the fun part. We'll wait to see what the teams look like. I can tell you that RCB won the toss, which might actually play into their hands. We saw Punjab Kings win quite an important toss. Why don't we look at the teams? Given Jitesh Sharma is leading and we're all anticipating Josh Hazlewood, guess what? No Josh Hazlewood. A first game for Nuwan Tushara. Sri Lankan seamer was part of MI last year, bowls a bit of with that slingy action, but has not featured this season. And Liam Livingston returns to having been dropped after 5 games for Romario Shepherd. Now the two together in the absence of Tim David, who I think is almost certainly out for a while now.
So have they chosen to bat first? Or?
They're bowling first. The bowling first 11 without Hazlewood, who's not even on the bench, and
No
Rajat,
Suyash.
It looks like a batting first 11, Raunak, because there's Krunal at 8.
and Patidar is in it. So I have a feeling they might be a little trickier because there's no reason Jitesh should captain with Patidar in it. So we will just wait for a second and just confirm if that is indeed the team.
But on Tushara, I believe that Hazlewood didn't bowl at full tilt yesterday in the Nets. So I'm guessing he's not 100% back. He's expected to be back for the playoffs. Do you think Tushara is there specifically maybe for Puran? Because, he has been out a few times with that ball kind of coming in from around the wicket, swinging in and getting him LBW. Although they didn't have too many options because Ngidi, I believe, has also left. But maybe Tushara could be there just to try and target Puran, do you think?
I think if Hazlewood was given the green light from Cricket Australia, which I think that's the obstacle, they've probably said, look, we want you to have X amount of days after travel and X amount of training days before you actually play a competition. So this is probably a directive from Cricket Australia, which you can understand. To your point around around Tushara is he's a point of difference. He's a little bit different, and it may well play into their hands because he does have the angles you're talking about. He can create those angles with that slingy action. He can also swing the new ball. He's also a good defensive option. So it's a good opportunity for him because it's certainly a significant game for RCB.
Yeah, Jitesh said at the toss that Patidar is going to come in from the impact bench. So I'm sure, but we have picked up the team officially from what we've been given from the broadcast. So we'll just hold on, perhaps just a minor glitch, and we'll just rectify it. What we do know is that it is Tushara for Ngidi, not Hazlewood, and it is Livingston for Tim David. So those are the significant changes made by RCB. Let's just focus a little bit on LSG's changes too, because Matthew Bretsky is going to play, which perhaps is an indication that while we all were thinking, Abhi, that maybe it's a great game, last one of the season for Pant to come in and open, it's not going to be the case. At least that's what we assume.
Yeah, if Gretzky plays, he obviously opens the batting, right? So I think he'll come in as a straight swap for Aiden Markram, Mitch Marsh and Gretzky to open the batting. So again, it's an opportunity lost, I would say. It's something that's worked well for them with Markram and Marsh, and you'd think why to change that, but Pant's come in at 3 a couple of times. I would have really hoped for Rishabh to bat slightly higher up the order this season. It gives you the opportunity to sort of explore what he can do with a lot more balls left, a lot more opportunities for him at that position. But I think it's again something that's lost. They're playing, they've made 2 changes. Obviously, Digvesh Rathi comes back. We'll wait and see where Pant bats, but I don't think he's coming any higher than 3.
Yeah, I wonder if this also gives us an indication of what the plans for this franchise are, and perhaps the plans are not now anywhere near a Rishabh Pant opening.
Or Miller coming back.
Yeah.
Is the other thing, because that was when I was looking at their team this afternoon, that was what I was thinking they'd go, is give Pant the licence at the top, give him the freedom to sort of shake off a poor IPL with a final throw of the dice, and get the finisher Miller, who's a proven number 5, number 6 into the side. But clearly they think Miller's probably on the trade table or on the auction table.
Right.
And Pant, they're not thinking opening anytime soon.
Dustin, I've learned that I should qualify you in this as our main Indian batter specialist. From KL Rahul to Shreyas Iyer to Ajinkya Rahane.
It's very confused.
So then I'll find a better way to title you, but just focus on Rishabh Pant, because you seem to absolutely nail it when it comes to the storylines for the marquee players on high prices or the captains of the franchises.
I mean, yeah, I think it's just been a poor form from him this season. I think he tried coming in a slightly earlier in the season. He was batting ahead of Badoni and Miller. Then he pushed himself down. One game he batted number 7. I'm guessing maybe today the reason he's not opening is he's thinking, okay, if I get a good base, that might be a better way for me to express myself rather than come in the power play. Or would you still say the time when your mind is clear is just to just go in at none for none?
I think at this point, Rishabh just wants the season to get over.
Right.
That's how you're thinking as a cricketer. You're like, let's reset for next year and let's just get this season done with. That's something that he'd be thinking on his head, because I think form is a very big cloud. There are multiple layers to form. If you ask coaches, they'll tell you there's technical loss of form, there's a mental loss of form. I think this is more a tactical loss of form. He's not found his rhythm to accumulate an innings. He's not able to find the tempo to say, okay, this is what my plan in the innings is. He's just, I feel he's coming way lower down the order because he's got fewer balls, and then he can do whatever he wants. But Tom, I'd love to hear what your thoughts on the same are.
Well, my thoughts are, I'd love to know what the LSG management were thinking when they targeted Pant in the auction, along with the fact that they'd already retained Nicholas Pooran, and they made the acquisitions they did in the auction. Because to me, it doesn't really stack up, because Pant's really always had that desire to bat 1, 2 or 3, hasn't he? But they've got that they bought that in the auction as well. So it's very confusing to where they fit. And it's going to be very interesting to see how they go about preparing their squad for 2026, because they need to get the best out of Pant. Not only because they've paid a fortune for him, but because that's their route to finding themselves in the top 4.
Let me throw something at you. At big auctions, often things don't go according to plan, and you have to activate plan B and C. You know that well, Tom. Now, once they acquired Pant for whatever price point they did acquire him, they then were in some ways limited with the composition of their overseas players and their bowling line, both of which has come to expose them this year. Let's assume that things were not according to plan right from the auction, and they had to make do, best case scenario, and they decided to go with this team. And the 2 overseas openers actually fired. So there you now carried on with something at least that was working. If you have to rebuild now, Pant is still very much part of your long-term plan. So you sense you want to now try and rebuild. How can you possibly rebuild? I'm sure there's a Bishnoi being released perhaps, or a Mayank Yadav being released, those sort of conversations will happen. How do you look to restructure with the Pant point you made now, looking forward?
First and foremost, I'd sit down with the captain, Rishabh Pant, and have a conversation and ask exactly that question and get him involved in that process. Get his thoughts around, how do we rebuild this? What do we feel we've missed this year? What do you feel that we need to add outside of the auction, whether it be through the trade or through the mini auction, and get his buy-in? And you never know, he might even say, well, put me back in and buy me back. You don't know. And if that's the case, you've got automatic buy-in and you could potentially free up 10 crore, which enables you to then go hunting for a high-profile pace bowler, both overseas and domestic, and start filling the gaps that you desperately need to fill.
Would you have the conversation of, do you still feel like you're motivated to lead the side?
That's part of the conversation. That wouldn't be a headline, because then you get a player or you get whoever it is very much on the back foot. I think that just unfolds through conversation, around how have you found this year? And he'd say, well, what do you mean? How have you found the leadership? Have you enjoyed it? It's been a challenging year. Have you enjoyed it? So just through conversation, tease out how he's feeling about the whole thing. And then you might land on the fact that he's desperate to do it going forward. He wants to be a championship captain.
That's all right.
And you can then sort of at least be on the same page to move forward. But there's no doubt that the ownership are keen for him to be a long-term asset to that franchise.
I saw him reply to some social media posts just ahead of the game last time, which also I found quite curious. He was trying to dismiss any reports floating around that the management are looking to either put him into the auction or replace him as captain. And even the response to these things, sometimes I read as, what kind of space the player might be in. Now, if we have to have an objective conversation here, do you sense the LSG management might actually be thinking on those lines? If you're Zair Khan, or if, I don't know what the future of even the coaches are there, if Justin Langer will continue or not. But if you're management, and if the problem is Pant the captain, you have to sometimes make this decision independent of him. Do you think they're even thinking about that?
I'm sure they are.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, this is a business. And I'm sure that people are looking at the right men or the right people to sort of lead you both on the field and off the field. And I'm sure, look, we've all seen Rishabh's growth from his under-19 days. And even if you look at him playing a test match or a game for India or whatever games he's been playing in, the one thing that I found missing on the field this year is the lack of banter and smiling and the Rishabh Pant that we know.
Right.
It's his character. You don't expect a KL Rahul to do that on the field, right? You don't do that.
Yeah.
He doesn't do that. It's his personality. But Rishabh's personality is a lot more outgoing. He's saying something on the stump mic. He's joking around with the players. You've hardly seen that this year.
It doesn't feel like he's enjoying.
Exactly. And that is a red flag for me. And that's why I think, for me, Rishabh Pant is definitely not enjoying his time. And that's the first thing for a cricketer. It might be our livelihoods, but at the end of the day, it's our passion. And we go back to enjoying the game a lot more. I feel Rishabh isn't at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, before the auction, we were having all these discussions about which team needs a captain. I think most of us agreed, didn't we, Raunak, that LSG don't necessarily need a captain because Nicholas Pooran has captained in other leagues and had success. He's been at LSG a while. He's
been West Indies captain.
He was always someone who, you thought, okay, he can be captain. Yes, he's not an Indian, but he's a sure shot in any IPL team. And then with Pant, I think the other thing that was curious is, if you look at the way the team was built, LSG bought, half a dozen Indian fast bowlers going into this season. And then the very first game, Pant plays 4 spinners, which clearly shows that his vision maybe is different for the team than what the squad was built around. Yes, there were injuries to pacers, so that forced the hand a little bit. But I wonder if there was ever a connect between how the squad was built and what Pant actually likes as captain.
I think it's a big 12 months generally for Rishabh Pant at the back of this kind of IPL. He's now vice captain of the test team, but where he stands in the pecking order for the T20 keepers and batters is a huge question mark. And we have a T20 World Cup before an IPL. So we'll have to wait to see what these next few months do for Pant, whether he himself comes out in many ways like how KL Rahul has and says, I could be the face of the franchise, but I may not need to lead. But all things that they will have to get to after tonight, and they have plenty of time to do that, LSG. I can tell you RCB have more to play for, so we'll talk about them now, and we'll focus on their team, which they've issued a quick clarification on. I think the wrong sheet was handed to everybody. Now, they've just clarified it, so there's no Patidar in the bowling first 11, there is Suyash Sharma. So that clarifies. So Tushara, Livingston, all in. It'd be nice if I actually see the name sometimes, but yeah, it's just all of Dustin's people in social media teams love to put their photographs on the infographic with great passion. Anyway, so that's the team. Now, they need to do one job first, which is restrict LSG to try and win this game. They're going to chase. Does the bowling seem threatening? Bhuvi's dipped a little bit. Tushara is in for Ngidi. I'm not quite sure if it's the most formidable bowling attack, though they have Livingston as an all-rounder today. Tom, concerns?
Definite concerns.
Right.
There's no doubt about that. I think the Hazelwood unavailability is a big one because he's like your rock, and he's proven that not only this season, he's proven that over a number of seasons. And I think they'll miss sort of leaning on that rock. There's a lot of unknowns. Bhuvi is now the rock of that attack, and he's had a pretty good season, Bhuvi. He's got, about 13 wickets?
It's actually split up. I'm just bring some numbers for you as well, and you can talk about the impact of a long tournament on performance, because there are key players. Bhuvi is one, Patidar is the other, but focusing on Bhuvi now, 8 of those 13 wickets, Tom, came in the first 7 innings. It's just gone a bit cold after that, including the economy rate.
An important thing is that that's also coincided with the time that Hazelwood's been out of the attack. And I think that does affect Bhuvi, where he bowls his overs. That's an important component of this.
Very good. My thunder.
Sorry,
that's all right. No, it's good. No, it's perfect. I was going to say, I was going to relate that to a similar situation with Mumbai Indians with Jasprit Bumrah. When Bumrah is around, everyone enjoys the spoils. And I'm not comparing Hazelwood with Bumrah. They're two different bowlers. But it's a similar effect you have, and I sort of recall the same thing with Rashid Khan in the early days with Sunrisers Hyderabad. When Rashid Khan was around and firing, which he was nearly every single time he walked out to the middle, everyone enjoyed the benefits of that because people were totally puzzled at one end, and then they would be panicking at the other end, thinking that they had to really catch up from the 4 overs that Rashid was bowling. So that's a major factor, but they need to get over that. They need to find a way of getting over it. I'm sure they would have had those conversations around asking their senior players to step up and lead the attack, with not only performance but just your presence, your body language, and everything else. And it may not be you bowling at the crease, getting there and having those conversations with your other bowlers, making sure that everyone's on the same page.
I think the break actually might just help Bhuvi a little bit more. He's also, 35, 36 now. We've always seen him struggle a little bit with a long season. He's played the entire domestic season this year as well. So I think the break might just, if there's one person that will help, it's Bhuvi. He's got all the experience to come back and he knows this ground quite well. So I think he will make a difference once they get into the playoffs, but they should ensure that they're back in the top 2 at least to see if they get a win, and then I think Bhuvi will get back to his best very soon.
Bit of a challenge for Jitesh, the captain, once again, to have to manage a slightly weaker bowling lineup. I wonder if Tushara's inclusion helps you use Bhuvaneshwar Kumar differently. We know that LSG stack up heavy at the top. So
that might just help them, I feel. I feel it will help RCB because they've struggled a little bit at the death without Hazelwood. LSG are a top-heavy side, so if they get couple early, then it might just help. And I think that's the reasoning behind bringing Nuwan Tushara, because they might end up using him a lot more in that power play.
Yeah, if Hazelwood's fitness resumption is questionable, I guess Tushara is all they've got left.
Yeah, I mean, Blessing Muzrabani is the only other overseas bowler, but he's just come in, so I think Tushara was always ahead of him in the pecking order.
The Zimbabweans who just come off a flight can do extraordinary things after that test match. So Blessing Muzrabani, watch out for him. Anyway, for the time being, let's focus on the other key player for RCB. Patidar's captaincy won't be seen. Once again, he will just try and get to full fitness. I believe it's a finger or a wrist injury that Patidar is nursing. So he can bat but doesn't want to be in the field. And Patidar's season also, for a player who's captaining for the first time, in the IPL. First 5 games, we were all very impressed, Abhi, weren't we? Average was good, strike rate, didn't see a drop in form as such, and he was leading nicely. Last 6 games, it's an awful time to lose your form.
He's that kind of player, is Rajat Patidar. Even if you look at the first 5 innings, if you look at the numbers closely itself, multiple opportunities being offered.
Yes.
He's a very chancy player. And that's what RCB want. They've built the team around the fact that Rajat can go hard, coming in at 4, coming in as a spin basher. They want him to continuously keep going hard. And maybe that's the sort of narrative that's coming in from the dressing room. I'm not too surprised that he's got a run of low scores, because when he did get those high scores, he was giving a lot more chances. But maybe that's what RCB want. They want him to continuously keep going hard in the middle overs and try and see if he can do what he did to LSG when he made that name for himself as an RCB player in that eliminator. If you look at 2-3 years ago, I think now 2022, that eliminator where he
He's specialist he came in as a replacement and his life changed.
His life changed, yeah. So they'd be expecting him to do that time and again, but I'm not surprised at that drop in those numbers.
Is that something big that they're missing? Perhaps an understated element of what they're missing? Patidar, the captain and the batter, missing this season?
I mean, the thing that I've picked up on him is against spin. Last season, he was one of the best players against spin. In fact, I think the number of sixes he hit some 22 sixes in 109 balls against spin last season. So almost every 4 balls, he was hitting a 6. This season's that's dropped to 6 sixes in 68 balls, and the strike rate against spin is 132. But the other thing that I picked up, which was interesting, is that he's actually trying more aggressive shots against spin this year. So this year he's attacking 50% of the balls against spin. Last year it was closer to 40. So it almost feels like he's trying too hard now, because he's developed that reputation that I'm the spin hitter. And last season maybe he was just kind of waiting for the ball to be in his arc, attacking the right balls, and now he's kind of pushing it maybe, Tom, against the spinners?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good point you make in that, he's now recognised in a specific role, has a specific strength, and he's now trying to play that for everyone else instead of what's required for him and what the team needs at that point. You've got to add the added layer of the responsibility of leadership, so he's wanting to lead from the front, show that, this is the positive brand of cricket. So you only have to take yourself back to the beginning of last season. The first half of the season for RCB, we're all critical because they played with the handbrake on. And we all thought, when are they going to get going? Everyone else is playing this brand of cricket. RCB is still playing yesterday's brand of cricket. And then suddenly their season shifted, and that was because their mindset shifted and their playing style shifted. And Patidar was very much central to that, along with Kohli and others that really just raise their bar. And I think the other thing is the reality is when you're out of form, your instinctive sort of mindset suddenly takes a back seat. When you're in form, you instinctively just go down and hit the ball. You think, oh, wow, I've hit that well and it's gone 85 metres. But if you're making an effort to do it and you're a little bit hesitant, it doesn't go 85, it goes 45, and you're walking off the park. And that's the difference between, being in form and not in form. And he's in that sort of vulnerable space at the moment where he's just trying to find that instinctive approach again.
I want to have this conversation at halftime as well, once we see what kind of score LSG get, to just talk about the number 3 position as well, and Patidar at 4. That 100 he got in the eliminator was against Lucknow, batted 3, came into the game in the first over, and 112 not out was significant turnaround in Rajat Patidar's IPL career. For now, though, they first have to restrict LSG, which means they first need to get rid of Mitch Marsh, who is in terrific form at the back of 100 himself. Let's break that down. Next up presents Power Play Conversations. He's liking this IPL, Mitch Marsh. He's going to go back a happy man. He's hitting sixes, lots and lots of them. How do RCB stop him?
Well, I think for a start, they can't bowl short to him because he's so powerful off the back foot. Been brought up in Perth, Western Australia, where it's a quick bouncy surface, and he welcomes anything that's halfway down or close to halfway down because he's such a strong puller of the ball in front of square. You've got to try to get, if there is movement early, you've got to try to extract movement early to expose Marsh's defence and try to nick him off. So I think you've just got to bowl test lines and test links early on, hit that pitch hard with conviction, not float the ball up there trying to swing it, but hitting that surface hard, trying to get movement away from Marsh, and then if you can get one to tail back in, quite often there's an opening there you can explore.
Is that why they've gone with Tushara first over and not Dayal or Bhuvaneshwar Kumar?
Yeah, I think they're seeing more Tushara as more of a power play specialist now. I mean, can bowl at the death, of course. We've seen him nail those Yorkers. But it's a good over to start your, like, let's say you're playing IPL for a new team. First over is a good over to start. And if the swing isn't there, like Tom mentioned, try and see if you can hit the deck, swing the ball, maybe get a couple early. If that isn't there, I think Krunal Pandya is an option for me in the power play. I think you bring him in and try and see what Marsh can do, because he just plants his front foot and tries and hits the ball down the ground. I think Krunal is a very smart operator, and he could be used in the power play with two right-handers.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say he's been out to Jadeja once this season and Harsh Dubey as well. And against Dubey, I think there were a couple of chances as well, or one chance before he was out. So, yeah, that's...
I remember Akshar Patel also bowling 4 tidy enough overs on the trot when it came to this fixture. But all that for later now.
You're in good form when that goes for 4. And I'm sure guys who are watching the broadcast will
a little outside edge.
0.3.
I think Tushara's started purely from a surprise factor.
Right.
Because he's different, he's unique, and I don't know whether either of these players have faced him. So, and that last delivery there that you're referring to, the outside edge, that was just a regulation full toss, and because it came from such a slingy action and it just tailed away from him, it was like nearly turned him inside out.
I'm curious to wait one more ball just to see something happens over here. But the forecaster says 203. By the time you give me your predictions, I will see that one ball. Dustin, kick us off. Forecaster 203, like I said.
I mean, I've been so off the last few games. I'll just say 182.
182 for Dustin.
I'm also going to go that much of a score only. I'm not going 200. I'm going, let's go lower. 169.
169. Now he thinks RCB will fire with the ball. Tom Moody.
173.
173. And just as we are about to say goodbye to you, I would have loved to stay on while a review is being taken at the Ekana. But we have to get off. These things take time. And Mitch Marsh is in good time, in good touch with some good fortune.
Can I adjust my total? Because I thought that was out.
Okay. I'm going to give you
I'll
2
stick
bites.
with mine. What did I say, 173?
170.
Yeah, no, I'll stay true to that.
All right, good man.
Give us a 120 all out.
Oh, me? Okay, 220.
Of course.
220, okay.
220, yeah.
So we're going to
Smashed it out of
see
the
a
park.
Nicholas Purran masterclass.
Well, you've been calling for that 30 ball 80 from Pant.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Point. Yeah. All right, we'll see where the game stands. Thank you, Tom Moody, Abhinav Mukund, and Dustin Silgardo. We will see how this all-important game for RCB looks at halftime. Join us then for Nexa Presents ESPN Cricket for Timeout.
Ready for it.
Thrill for it.
Presenting Franks with Turbo Booster Jet Engine.
Nexa.